Good morning, y'all. I don't know who will show up, and I don't know who will watch. As I described in my description, it's been a weird start to the day, y'all. Last week, I believe, about this time, last weekend, I gained a day. It's like I'm going through my own personal leap year in short order. Mm. Sitting on my front porch and having some coffee. I brought some cards out. Funnily enough, the adrenaline dreams that have been plaguing me for the last week, I had a slice of life dream, is what I have decided to call it. Hmm. Right now I'm flipping some oracles and it gave me microscopium, analyze. Hmm. The next one out is Pixis, guide. I want to let y'all know that the music I'm listening to today started with two songs. Pardon the noise of outdoors if it bothers, and also if my voice is too loud, please turn it down. Well, the first song that played, although I know and love the Red Hot Chili Peppers, I realized that I never knew the name of the song, called My Friends by, well, I already told you. And then the next was Newborn by Muse, another song that I absolutely love, but never knew the title of. Well, this week, baby, I lost a day. I could have swore that I fell asleep the day before yesterday, Friday evening, and I woke up and I thought yesterday was Saturday. I feel like I even had it confirmed by somebody. I just called it, yesterday, and I was told Friday, and that felt right. And here I am, early Monday morning. I swear, when I turned on my phone, I only charged one. I have two because I wasn't preparing for doing my morning live. I didn't really clean up yesterday. It was a lounging day, a self-care day. Now, I don't usually blame things on Mercury retrograde, but some things electronically happened, and this definitely feels related, as I have a Moon Mercury Mars Lilith stellium. It feels relevant. We have Centaurus knowledge, Pubis travel, Musca respond, and Corvus magic. I swear I feel like which one of y'all took the day? Who's the culprit? Hmm. The Page of Cups is at the bottom of this learner deck. Let's see what this says in reverse. Nothing that feels relevant. Right now, Fastball, The Way is playing. Another old favorite, but I always knew the sound of this one. I know every word. Auriga, Victory, and Lupus, Wisdom, which I found out lupus, as I thought, is Latin for wolf. Lepus is the hare. But on these cards, it's reversed. And didn't I say the other day a, uh, a sheep in wolf's clothing with functional teeth? Doesn't that seem synchronistic? Well, since I'm here and I'm just talking, and I thought perhaps Holy Spirit would tell me that Sunday was the appropriate day to tell you all about my apocalypse dream. I couldn't have been. Morning. I'm I'm out here doing a live as I woke up thinking it was Sunday. I looked at my fucking phone so confused. I still feel like it's Monday. Yeah. I mean, I'm awake. I'll be prepared, but I'm fucking weirded out. It feels like Sunday to me. I did. I woke up, cramps woke me up. I had a very regular dream. It was like a regular, yeah, it was like a regular day in the life dream. I woke up before my alarm and I was just like, maybe I'm supposed to get up now. Yo. So, back in those days, Bunny was a casual to spiritualism. I had been raised Baptist but had left the church, not really by will, well, eventually by will, but the origination of our loss, I guess, of our church was that my uncle contracted HIV somewhere between the ages, for me, of 5 and 7. By the time I was 7, he was seriously chronically ill, bedridden, and was enduring hospice in our family home. Pardon me while I take a sip of coffee. I tend to meander, y'all, with my stories. Things have always seemed very interconnected to me. My grandmother and my uncle were very involved in the church. I remember it was a deeply sacred experience to me. We were always going to church in a white Jeep Cherokee, which felt large and safe to me. We were always listening to Kirk Franklin. I'm pretty sure it was Kirk Franklin and the Family, the Silver and Gold album. My uncle was a teacher, a playwright, and leader of the choir. I didn't know all this back then. Some of these things I found out as an adult only. And when they found out, the church, that he had contracted HIV, they shunned him. Old-fashioned shunning. There was no explanation. They just allowed my grandmother, who couldn't come to church as she was caring for her youngest and closest son in his death. They just let her figure out when nobody came, to show their support. Southern Baptist Church, when people get sick, people come by. Well, no one came, and so my grandmother had no help. And I suppose this is related because the only time I've ever had a dream this vivid that was good, that I remembered, was when he died. He died while I was at school, and my family didn't want me to arrive at the scene. So when I got off the school bus, cousins and an aunt, who weren't really cousins or an aunt, they were adopted family to us, but were family to me and all of us, We didn't have hierarchies like that in our family. They came and they got me, and I just never saw him again until eventually his funeral. But long before his funeral, I had a dream. It was a bright, sunny, I'd call it Technicolor day. Later, when I would watch What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams, I was stricken by the similarity. It was so bright. It was like a painting. It was like candy. The sun was warm, and although I was raised in Georgia, there wasn't a hint of humidity. It was so clear. The sky was so blue, and there was way more flowers than were actually in that neighborhood at that time. And he was wearing all white, and he was healthy and young and sprightly and spicy, just as he was in life. And although I don't ever remember going for a walk with him while he was alive, we went for a walk. And I don't remember what we spoke about. I just remember the movement and the comfort and our neighborhood. It was very true to life. And I remember when I woke up, the tears. And while I was grieving him, as I would grieve for him for a very long time, they were happy tears. Honestly, the only happy tears that came to me surrounding that subject for a very long time. Mm. But Grandma never went back to that church. And it didn't take me very long to feel like the magic had left it. I had always felt it was like the sacredness of going to church would end as we got to church. It didn't feel the same. I suppose I felt people's shadow, hypocrisy, and unbelief very young. And well, Grandma switched churches and she began to go to a little country church, which definitely felt more godly. At first, it was an auditorium on a military base. And this church was small, all white, a lot of wood, wooden benches. It smelled beautiful. It reminded me of the smell of a library, pretty old library. But I had the same feeling there. And the motivation to go just left me. One day she got up to go to church, and I suppose I just decided no. I stayed in bed. I think I pretended to be asleep. And when she came to collect me, I just didn't stir. She called my name a couple of times. And my grandmother, she was not one of many words to share with me, really at any stage in my life. But often she felt my vibe. I used to feel so confused about her, whether she even liked me. But I also found out that my grandmother lost her eldest child as a toddler, and then my uncle, her closest, when he was, I believe, 27. And so I think the hardness that she put on was just because she was so tender-hearted and had endured a lot of pain. But I think she knew that I was just done, and she didn't force it. And the loyalty that I have for that woman, even her death, I couldn't describe. But that was one of the milestone events that she didn't always understand me 3D, but she understood me on a 5D level. And I think I grew to understand her on that level as well, closer to the end of our time together. Okay, well, from that point, at about 7 to present day, I have stepped into a church very rarely. I tried between the ages of 12 and maybe 15 with my best friend, who they had always been very, very into the church. And they were going to like a new age collective type church. You know, all the new church songs that they got now. God is an awesome God, he reigns from heaven above. Those types of songs, you know? And the flags and sign language specialists to do what have you, in a nursery in church, all these little things. And while honestly the people there, many more of them felt more godly to me, they're children. I couldn't deal. And so again, I left and did not try to go back after that. And around, I don't know, y'all, I could not tell you the age, but there's definitely a before this dream and after this dream. I think I must have been about 17. And I think I had been reading Memnoch the Devil by Anne Rice, which is one of the most beautiful stories I've ever read in my life. And it gave me a sense of understanding about God, and also a sense that I had been projecting my feelings about humanity onto God. Probably because of the oversimplification of us being made in the image of God. And so it seemed reverse engineerable to my young mind, my young logic. But I had begun to understand that God is wondrous and awesome. We can't understand him by projecting our ways onto him, but we can understand our ways better by projecting his wholeness, holiness, and goodness onto ourselves. Without ego, of course. It's a difficult task. One night, it was like any other night, I went to sleep and I had a dream. It was like a Michael Bay film before Michael Bay was doing films, long before there was even a whisper on the ground level of Transformers. And I don't know what the fuck he did before Transformers. I was in the middle of a city, and I was not raised in a city. I was raised in a suburb, and I've laid my eyes on very few cities, period, especially ground level. But I was on the ground in a city that had large business buildings and also skyscrapers. And angels and demons were fighting. And the angels looked like, and all of these things when I talk about supernatural beings would only be metaphors, because I can't even really see them in my mind's eye anymore. But what I remember is that not like a Siberian tiger, but also like a Siberian tiger. And they were the size of kanji. That's the word for them. Like Godzilla, King Kong. The demon, I feel like they were similar to orange tigers, but also not quite. And there was something about them, my memory of them, there's a darkness to them that they didn't have visually. And there were people everywhere, running, screaming. They are going at it. Things are getting crushed. Things are getting knocked over. The demon was stepping on people, but I noticed that the angel somehow was not. Yes, it was knocking over things, but nobody under its feet was harmed. But the demon was just, you know, It was like I got the impression that they were aware of near everything all at once, or as close to everything to my human mind as I can conceptualize without them being God themselves. As I say, people were screaming. There was chaos in the streets and explosions, street lights knocked over onto cars on the ground, people trying to save each other, people abandoning each other. But it was like I was transfixed. I couldn't look away from the angel. I felt my eyes so big in my face. And in that moment, although I was absolutely horrified, I knew without a doubt that God was real. And in that way, I felt at peace. Everything had to be perfectly fine if God was actually real, like I had always believed. And of course, that sense of being happy to be right. I gotta say, maybe it's because I have so much air in my chart, but I love to be right. I don't hate being wrong anymore, but doing the quantum math on things and coming up with the right answer, especially because I have always been remarkably bad at the maths, quick or slow, I had to work and struggle for every bit of success that I have had in math to this day. From the concept of zero as a child onward. Well, as I was, I guess, congratulating all of humanity that I was right and God is real, and while this is happening, it's going to pan out. It's going to pan out fine. Nowhere, even in the darkest corner of my petty little human heart, did I conceive of good and evil with the capital G and E being real and God losing. And at that moment, long before Constantine, long before I saw Constantine, I was snatched into the sky from the ground by a force that I knew was the hand of God in the dream. And I was screaming, y'all, this, looking back, must have been some kind of test. I went to Cedar Point with my mother once. I've only been to one amusement park. And the ride where you start at the bottom and it shoots you up into the sky, y'all, I screamed until I ran out of breath. And then I passed out for a moment. I fucking passed out and came back immediately and screamed a little bit more. It was as close to like that as it could be when God has his hand on you and is bringing your worst fear into life of having absolutely no control over your physical body. And I still feel a little bit of shame that I had no chill. There was no space for chill or for trust in God as I was careening face forward, trajectory up through the sky. I don't know if a body can reach Mach 1 or Mach 2, but it felt like that, just far too fast. Felt like death. Oh my God, my arms were snatched backward and my legs were folded backward by the force of the air and traveling through it. And I didn't speak because when you're going that fast, the air, I don't even know, would it choke you? I don't think I tried to open my mouth, but I thought I was not even, I didn't even complete the thought. Some, it wasn't even articulate, just something like, please release me. And before I could finish constructing the thought, God heard me, and mercifully, I was just on the ground. And I think even in the dream, I thought, if I could have been transported in the blink of an eye by a God who can do all and any things, why did he scare me like that? But I was in the Middle East, a place I've never been, and a place I've never seen. And once again, movies later showed me what the Middle East looks like in real life, and it looked a lot like that. Unfinished floors, white building, and I was inside one. In a hall, I would say, for dining. And I didn't know they didn't sit in chairs often there, but there wasn't chairs. And there were men all around talking, moving slowly, and the place felt holy, like a church. And this room was connected by a few dirt stairs to a wooden door, and the door was open, and it got hushed, and men brought in a board, maybe 8 by 5, I would say, 8 in length and 5 across, perhaps. Several men were carrying it, and on it, at first covered by a white sheet, but then they took it off. I immediately knew that this was the body of Jesus Christ. And as I was realizing that I knew it, I was just crying, and nobody saw me. If they saw me, they had faith that was so strong that they didn't react. They knew I was supposed to be there, but it was as though I wasn't there. And I was just crying, feeling blessed and unworthy at the same time, in a way that I have never felt. Never in another dream, never in my life before or to this very day. And he was so handsome, y'all. Like heartbreakingly handsome, but not at all. There was nothing carnal at all about how I felt. And he wasn't white, he wasn't black. I didn't know what the fuck Middle Eastern people looked like, but he was like the deepest, darkest archetype of what you might think of when you think Middle Eastern. And his eyes were closed, but his body was in perfect stasis, I guess you would call it. No smell. And in my mind, I was confused because I knew that in the Bible, he ascended whole. I know he visited with people. He was seen leaving his tomb. And when I thought that, I woke up. Because it wasn't that I doubted that I was seeing what I was seeing or feeling what I was feeling, but I just couldn't understand the dissonance. I still do not understand that. And for a while, it disrupted, I had a cognitive dissonance about believing in Jesus Christ as the Savior, as the Redeemer, as the one who died for our sins and rose again, whole. I certainly do believe now, today, and now I can put aside and accept that I don't know how it fucking works. But I know I believe it because I can't believe otherwise. Because I believe what I saw and what I felt and what I've always felt. And it was like it was a bow has been put on it at some point. But y'all, when I woke up from that dream, I was a complete fucking wreck. I cried for like an hour. I didn't leave my room because I knew I couldn't talk about it. I just could not group my poop, as Sterling would say. There's no way that I was ready to tackle that with anyone. And then maybe at the same time I felt like it wasn't for anyone. And well, I've told this story very few times. This might be the 6th time since I was 19 and I'm now 36 that I've told anyone. And so now, instead of a tarot reading, I've told y'all, and I hope that bearing with me through it was not too difficult of a task, and that I did glory and justice to it. And I love you. Be well.